Start recording. Screen sharing. There we go. Okay. Make it so I can see more of you. All right, here we go. And the chat box. Sorry, I'm getting all organized here. Okay, Alexa, I will change your attendance. Okay, so in review, I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes. There were 5 types of bones that we talked about on Monday. I want you to name them. I want you to describe them shortly, and then I want you to give an example of each. It is 10:15. I will give you 5 minutes to do that. Okay, Tyler, I will change your attendance. I got a lot of people coming in late here, it looks like, so I'll change them. I got you, Adam. You're okay.
Are we supposed to write them in the chat or?
No, you're supposed to write them in your notes. Got about 3 minutes left. Natalie, quick question for you. Are you entering in as somebody by the name of Faith?
Yeah, sorry. My computer crashed, and so now I have to use my sister's.
Okay, just double checking. You're good.
Okay, thank you.
So I got Adam here. I got Tyler K. Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Alexa.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And Hannah.
I'm here.
Okay. I think those were all that showed up late. Okay, so that's 5 minutes. Sam, what is one type of bone we talked about on Monday?
A short bone.
Short bone, okay? Arvind, how would you describe a short bone?
The short bone has the same width and height and depth.
Okay, good. So it's typically as long as it is wide, and it's kind of like a cube. So think of a dice. Good. Okay, Joey, give me an example of a short bone.
An example of a short bone is the carpals in the wrist.
Good, the carpals in the wrist. Perfect. Okay. Drew, what's another type of bone?
Long bone.
Long bone. And Shayla, how do you describe a long bone?
So a long bone would be longer than it will have, longer than its width.
Good. Okay, so a long bone is longer than it is wide. Perfect. Siona, what is an example?
Would the femur be an example?
The femur would be an example. Perfect. Okay. One more. Rachel, what is one more type of bone?
A flat bone.
Flat bone. Okay. Nick, what is the description or definition of a flat bone?
It's like flatter, and it's longer than it is wide.
Okay, that would be a long bone, but what's a flat bone?
Isn't like the same thing, but just like flatter.
Okay, so it is thin. It is thin and it protects organs. Okay. Reagan, what's an example of a flat bone?
The sternum.
The sternum. Good. Okay. So the other two types of bones that were discussed were irregular and sesamoid. Okay. Irregular has an odd shape. It has some protrusions or things sticking out from it. Okay. And an example of an irregular bone would be the vertebrae. And a sesamoid bone is a bone that is floating in a tendon. Okay. And for example, the patella. Okay. So we talked about the different types of fracture, okay? But these are the different forces or types of forces that can cause an injury in general, okay? So I'll give you a minute to write these down. Give yourself a little bit of space, not much, and we're gonna talk about each one and how it's a little bit different, okay? Okay, so compression force is anytime something is squeezed. So that could be that somebody in football is compressed when two defenders come together and squeeze them on each side. It could be that you drop something on your foot and that compression or that item is hitting the top of your foot and the ground is pushing up on the bottom of your foot, okay? So compression can be one object or two, and it is a squeezing, okay? What type of fracture, Kian, do you think would be common with a compression force?
Can you say that one more time?
What type of fracture, what classification of fracture would be common with a compression force? We talked about fractures in this class, right? Or am I getting my classes confused here?
No. Direct.
Okay.
Wait.
So don't worry about this yet. It would be
Oh.
from a previous lecture. Did we talk about fractures in this class? Give me thumbs up or down. I'm getting confused between this class and my other class.
I don't think we did.
Okay, we did. Never mind, Kian. I gave you an impossible question. Sorry.
I was like, what?
I got confused with my other class. The other class, we're gone a little bit faster. We've talked about fractures. My bad. Okay, so tension then. Back on to this diagram here. A tension force is something that is going to be pulling in opposite directions, okay? So that's what the arrows are showing you. They are showing you the direction of the force being applied, okay? So for example, if I was to be holding onto a football and somebody else came and tried to rip that football out and they pulled on my arm, they would be doing a tension force on my shoulder, okay? The next type is rotation. So if I planted in twist when making a cut for soccer, if I stepped on a crack when I was walking down the side of the road and I rolled my ankle or sprained my ankle, that'd be a rotational force, okay? A shearing force is a little bit different, okay? What you're gonna have, I'm gonna try to sit sideways so you can see the back of the wall there. There we go, okay? Is your forces are going in opposite directions, okay? The difference between that and bending, your force is going to go in the same direction and it's going to just push in the middle, okay? So do you guys get the difference between a shearing and a bending there? Okay.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so for shearing, your forces are going in opposite direction. You could also think of plate tectonics. When this goes, you have your earthquake line here, and one plate goes one way, the other plate goes the other. Okay. You can think of roads on the road, okay, or traffic lanes in the road. One direction, one lane is going one way, the other lane is going the opposite way. Okay. In a bending, you're trying to take something here and you're pushing, the force is here in the middle and you're pushing it. So all the force is going in one direction, okay? In order for a bending to happen, you have to have two fixed ends, okay? So the ends here have to be still in order for a bend to occur, okay? Does that make more sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so direct versus indirect. Some of these forces are directly applied. A compression, I have to apply a compression force to that specific structure, okay? In rotation, the force could be applied to my foot, but the injury could happen at my knee, okay? So that's the difference between an indirect and a direct force, okay? A force is direct if it is applied to a specific structure and that structure is injured. A force is indirect if a force is applied to one structure and another structure gets hurt. Okay? Who is... Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to push that button. Somebody is unmuted. Keep hearing background noise. Hey, Tyler, will you go ahead and mute yourself? Thank you. Okay. So we are moving on here. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about the types of joints. Okay. This is where you need to take notes because this is going to be helpful for you for your assignment after the lecture. Okay. What I would do is I would not write this down yet. We're going to have one slide per type of joint, okay? So the 3 types of joints in the body are diarthrodial, amphiarthrodial, and synarthrodial, okay? They are also sometimes called synovial joints, cartilaginous joints, or fibrous joints, okay? So first, we have diarthrodial, okay? This picture is from your textbook on page 604. It is the first page of the part 2 on Google Classroom, okay? So it's the second section and it's the first page, okay? Part of what you guys will do for your, well, I'll go ahead and give you time now. Go ahead and open up your textbook, and I want you to label the 4 structures here. 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? It is perfect. It's 10:30. I will give you 5 minutes to go ahead and label those 4 structures, okay?
What page did you say it was on again?
604.
Okay, thank you.
Patty, in your notes, go ahead and just label it. If you want to draw it, you can. I would personally not, because I'm not that good of an artist. One more minute. Okay. So diarthrodial joints are also called synovial joints, okay? A synovial joint has to have these 4 components, okay? These 4 components are a little bit different than what I have over here, okay? But they must have a joint capsule, okay? So number 1 here was the joint capsule, the green piece, okay? What that's telling you is there is fluid in that joint. If you were to cut it open and let that fluid out, it'd be more of a clear like fluid, okay? That was going to be, well, it wasn't one of the ones you labeled, okay? Number 2 then is your articular cartilage or your hyaline cartilage. This is special cartilage or tissue at the end of the bone. It is soft and it provides a lubrication / a little bit of a cushion to the ends of the bone so that they can slide, move smoothly past each other. Without this cartilage here, you would have a lot of rubbing against the bone. When people start losing this cartilage, it's very, very painful. And that's typically when people are going to end up with a joint replacement surgery. We just did 2. 3 here is your synovial membrane, okay? So you have your capsule, but then inside of the capsule is the membrane. That membrane is what is going to be holding the fluid in place, okay? The cavity then, number 4 here, is a 3-dimensional space that it is created, okay? Ligaments have to be there in order to hold these structures in place. Without ligaments, our joints would be very, very weak. We would be able to dislocate them very easily, okay? We would not be able to move very well either, okay? Now, diarthrodial joints can be further classified into hinge, multi-axial or ball and socket, pivot, and gliding joints, okay? So once we get into the anatomy more specifically, we will be able to look and say, hey, this is the range of motion. This is the motion that that joint does. That means it is this type of joint, okay? So for example, the hinge joint would be your elbow, okay? It can only move in 2 directions. By rotating your hand over, you're actually using a different joint, not your true elbow joint, okay? The ball and socket or multi-axial, you have to look at it, okay? There's really 3 of them in our body, but 2 of the major ones are your hip and your shoulder, okay? A pivot joint would be your wrist, okay? Your wrist, you can pivot in multiple directions, okay? Now, within your wrist is your carpal bones. The carpal bones themselves are sliding past each other in order to allow that pivot to happen, okay? So your wrist is a pivot joint, but the carpals within the wrist are a gliding joint, okay? It can get a little confusing, but that's how it works, okay? Now, an amphiarthrodial joint. Amphi is limited, very, very limited movement, okay? Instead of the joint coming together with 2 bones and a capsule, what is happening is you have cartilage that is holding 2 bones together. Cartilage is a very, very fibrous or strong, not very strong, but stronger structure than your ligaments and synovial fluids, okay? These joints don't like to move, but they have to a little bit. The biggest example here is your ribs, okay? If your ribs were solid and they did not move, we wouldn't be able to breathe, okay? But we don't want them to move as much as a synovial joint or a diarthrodial joint, because then we can do a lot of damage to our lungs and our heart. So this is kind of that happy medium. every time you breathe, your ribs actually rotate a little bit. So when you get that stitch in your side after exercise and you're like, I can't breathe, okay? That's because the muscles in between your ribs are actually starting to cramp a little bit, okay? Now, we want some movement. In the next case, a synarthrodial, syn means no movement, okay? When we look at the plates in our skull, when we are born, they are more of an amphiarthrodial joint. There's cartilage here that allows them to move a little bit. That's the only way we can get our skulls through the birth canal, okay? Over time, that cartilage becomes fibrous joints, okay? And that's where we get these synarthrodial. We don't really want our skull to move too much. If it moved, we would be poking at our brain, and that's not a good thing, okay? So this is very tough connective tissue, and it's bone to bone. There's nothing in between it. There's very little movement, and if it breaks, it's usually a pretty significant injury, okay? Now, are there questions about the 3 types of joints? 3 main categories. Okay, so what I want you to do then is you are going to classify these joints here, okay? These are all diarthrodial joints. That's not what I want you to do. So I don't want you to put diarthrodial, 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 okay? What type of diarthrodial joint is the shoulder, the elbow, the tarsals, and the knee, okay? We talked about the 4 different subcategories, so I want you to use those to label these, okay? It is 10:42. I'll give you 3 to 4 minutes to do that, okay? Go ahead. Okay. Zach Whitfield, how would you classify the shoulder joint?
I said it was multi-axial.
Perfect. Good. Multi-axial. Okay. It can do a lot of different movements. It has a large range of motion, and it's a ball and socket. Good. Elizabeth, what'd you get for the elbow?
A hinge joint.
Hinge joint. Great. Okay. It can really only do 2 movements, flexion and extension, and that is it. Okay. Sienna, what'd you get for tarsals of the ankle?
Did you say me or Siona?
You.
Okay. I wasn't really sure. I put multi-axial, but I don't think that's right.
Okay. So there's no ball and socket for the tarsals within the ankle. What was the carpals within the wrist?
I'm not sure.
Gliding. Okay. So the tarsals, the mini bones within the back portion of your foot are going to be gliding joints. Okay. McKenna, what'd you get for the knee?
I said hinge, but I'm not really sure.
Okay, what other one would you think of?
Multi-axial.
Okay. So do you know the shape of the bones in the knee?
Not really.
Okay. So it's not going to be a multi-axial. Okay. Some people consider it a hinge. Some consider it a pivot because it can rotate a little bit. I'm going to go more with a hinge joint. Okay. Okay. So now then, what you guys are going to do is you are going to create an infographic. Okay. What you're going to do is you're going to have the 3 main categories: synarthrodial, diarthrodial, and amphiarthrodial. Under diarthrodial, you're going to have the different subcategories: hinge, pivot, multi-axial, and gliding. Okay. I am not a great artist, so I would do this digital. Okay. But I would still like it to look good. So I don't want you to just put a whole bunch of words in a table and say, there's my infographic. Okay. So you can do it by either drawing by hand or digitally. And then you will turn in a picture or a copy of your infographic. Okay. What you need to include is the name of the joint, how it is different, so what makes it different than the others, okay, and a picture or example, not or, but a picture and an example of each type of joint. Does that make sense?
Instead of doing like the difference, can we just do like a defining characteristic?
Yes, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Are we doing 3 different infographics or one big one?
Okay, so you're going to do one big one. This is very, very rough. Don't copy this, but here's my example. Okay, so it would be one piece of paper. This is a very small piece because I have to be able to show you. Okay, but think of about a whole 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that would have all of the different categories. Okay, does that make more sense?
Oh, so we're doing it on a piece of paper or doing it on, like, what are we doing it on?
So you can choose. Sorry, hold on. I got a lot of noise in the background. Hold on one sec. Sorry, they're driving a massive forklift past my room right now. You can choose. So you can either do it on a piece of paper if you like drawing and you want to do that, that's fine. Or you can do it on a digital copy. Your choice. Okay. Any other questions?
Do you have,
Is there like a graph involved with this?
No, so no graph, just pictures of the examples.
do you have written instructions?
I will
Or
put up
just
written
one?
instructions in the classroom.
Okay.
Okay.
And when does this due?
By the end of the class, well, by tomorrow night, midnight tomorrow.
Do you make up the examples or?
As far as what? Because you
Like
can't
for-
really make a joint, but so a hinge joint is the elbow.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I will put up I'll put up the assignment on Google Classroom. Okay. I will have GoGuardian up and you can chat with me in there if you need to, or you can use email to ask me questions. Okay. There's no need to come back to the Zoom. We are done for the day. This assignment is due tomorrow before midnight. Got it? Okay.